Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Liberty, staring at the stars through the main window. The ship moved slowly through space, checking trade routes near the outer colonies. It was quiet work, but Jake liked it that way. He had been doing patrol runs for 5 years now, and nothing exciting ever happened out here. "Captain, we're getting a signal," said Ben Carter from his seat at the communication station. His voice was tight with worry. "It's from Centauri Colony." Jake walked over to Ben's station. "Put it through." The speakers crackled with static. Then a man's voice came through, full of fear. "This is Centauri Colony calling any ship in range. We need help. They're coming. The Voidborn are coming. We have maybe 6 hours before they reach us. Please, if anyone can hear this, we have 12 million people here. We need help." The message cut off into static. Jake felt his stomach drop. Everyone in the galaxy knew about the Voidborn. They had been destroying worlds for 3 years now. No one who fought them ever won. No one who faced them ever lived to tell about it. "How far are we from Centauri?" Jake asked. Lieutenant Kate Sullivan looked up from her station. She was the ship's tactical officer, a smart woman who always knew the right numbers. 8 hours at full speed, sir." Jake closed his eyes. They would be too late. They were always too late when it came to the Voidborn. "Set course for Centauri. Full speed." "Sir," Kate said quietly, "our orders are to patrol this sector. Command didn't tell us to respond to distress calls from Voidborn attacks." Jake looked at her. Kate was right about their orders, but Jake couldn't just ignore 12 million people in danger. "I don't care about orders right now. Set the course." The Liberty turned and began moving fast toward Centauri. Jake called his senior officers to the bridge. Chief Engineer Tony Rodriguez came up from the engine room, wiping grease from his hands. Dr. Lisa Park arrived from the medical bay looking worried. "What's the situation, Captain?" Tony asked. "The Voidborn are hitting Centauri Colony. We're going to see if we can help." Dr. Park shook her head. "Jake, you know what happens to ships that fight the Voidborn. They all get destroyed. Every single one." "I know," Jake said. "But we can't just leave those people." The Liberty flew through space for 8 hours. No one talked much. Everyone knew they were probably flying to their deaths, but no one complained. Jake was proud of his crew. They were good people. When they reached Centauri, the colony world was quiet. Too quiet. Jake could see the planet through the window, and it looked wrong. The green forests and blue oceans were gone. Everything was brown and gray, like someone had sucked all the life out of it. "Scanning the planet," Kate said. "I'm not picking up any life signs, none at all." Ben was working at his station trying to find any signals from the planet. No communications, no power sources, nothing. Jake stared at the dead world. 12 million people had lived there yesterday. Now there was nothing. The Voidborn had done this in just a few hours. Jake had seen pictures of other worlds they had destroyed, but seeing it in person was different. It made him feel sick and angry at the same time. "Sir, I'm picking up something," Ben said. "There's a ship hiding behind the third moon." "It's not human. Put it on screen." The main screen showed a small alien ship. It was damaged and looked like it was barely working. Jake had never seen a ship like it before. "They're sending a signal," Ben said. "It's in standard galactic language." "Let me hear it." An alien voice came through the speakers. It sounded old and tired. "Human ship, please help us. We are refugees from the Zilani homeworld. We have been running from the Voidborn for months. Our ship is dying." Jake made his decision quickly. "Bring them aboard. Use docking bay 2. "Sir," Kate said, "we don't know anything about these aliens. They could be dangerous." "They're running from the same enemy we are," Jake said. "That makes them friends in my book." 20 minutes later, Jake stood in docking bay 2 with Dr. Park and 2 security officers. The alien ship was small and old. When the door opened, 3 aliens came out. They were tall and thin with gray skin and large eyes. They moved slowly, like they were very tired. The oldest alien stepped forward. "I am Elder Crone of the Zilani people. Thank you for helping us. I'm Captain Morrison. You're safe now. Dr. Park will take care of any injuries you have." Elder Crone looked at Jake with his large, dark eyes. Captain Morrison, you should not have come here. The Voidborn will return to check their work. They always do. How many worlds have they destroyed? Jake asked. 203 worlds. Across 47 star systems, Crone said sadly. My people tried to fight them. We had strong ships and good weapons. It didn't matter. Nothing matters against the Voidborn. They learn from every attack. They adapt to every weapon. After they figure out how to beat you, they destroy everything. Jake felt a chill. How long do we have? They will be back in 2 hours, Crone said. You should run now while you still can. Jake looked around the docking bay. His crew was listening to every word. He could see fear in their eyes, but he also saw something else. They were waiting for his orders. They trusted him to make the right choice. Tony, how fast can we get out of here? We can be at jump speed in 30 minutes, the engineer said. Jake nodded. Do it. Set course for the nearest human colony. We need to warn them. As the Liberty prepared to leave, Jake stayed with Elder Crone. The old alien told him more about the Voidborn. They had come from somewhere beyond the galaxy's edge. No one knew why they destroyed worlds. They just did it, moving from system to system like a plague. Every military force has tried to stop them, Crone said. The Altarian fleet had 1,000 ships, gone in 1 day. The Corthan Defense Force fought for 3 months. All destroyed. Even the great alliance of 12 species could not slow them down. Jake listened to everything Crone told him. Something about the Voidborn attacks bothered him, but he couldn't figure out what it was. There had to be a pattern. There had to be a weakness. Everything had a weakness. The Liberty jumped to hyperspace, leaving the dead world behind. But Jake kept thinking about what he had seen. 12 million people dead in a few hours, an entire world turned into a wasteland. And the Voidborn were still out there, moving toward more worlds, more people. Jake made a promise to himself as he stood on the bridge, watching the stars streak by. He was going to find a way to stop them. Somehow, some way, someone had to make them pay for what they had done. The USS Liberty arrived at Haven Colony 3 days later. Haven was a small mining world with only 50,000 people, but it had good defenses and a safe harbor for refugee ships. Jake watched as Elder Crone and the other Zilani survivors were taken to temporary housing on the planet's surface. Captain, we're getting new orders from Fleet Command, Ben said from his station. Jake read the message on his personal screen. Fleet Admiral Hayes wanted all patrol ships to focus on evacuation duties. No ship was to engage the Voidborn under any circumstances. All military forces were to retreat to the inner colonies and prepare defensive positions. Jake deleted the message without responding. He had other plans. Kate, I want you to gather all the combat footage we can find of Voidborn attacks. Everything from the last 3 years. Tony, get me the technical specs on every weapon system that's been used against them. Lisa, I need medical reports on any survivors we can find. His crew looked at him with surprise. Kate was the first to speak. Sir, are you planning to fight them? I'm planning to understand them, Jake said. Every enemy has a weakness. We just need to find it. For the next week, Jake barely slept. He spent his time in the ship's computer room, watching battle recordings over and over. He saw Altarian cruisers firing their powerful beam weapons at Voidborn ships. The beams worked for a few minutes, then suddenly became useless. He watched. Corthan fighters launched their famous gravity bombs. The bombs destroyed several Voidborn ships, then the aliens adapted and the bombs stopped working. The pattern was always the same. Human weapons, alien weapons, new weapons, old weapons. They all worked for a short time, then became useless. The Voidborn seemed to learn from every attack and find a way to defend against it. Kate joined him on the 3rd day. She brought coffee and sandwiches. You need to eat something, Jake. Look at this, Jake said, pointing to the computer screen. Every battle recording shows the same thing. The Voidborn take exactly 4 minutes and 42 seconds to adapt to any new weapon, every single time. Kate sat down and looked at the numbers. She was good with tactical analysis, and Jake valued her opinion. That's very precise timing. Almost like they're using some kind of computer system to analyze threats. That's what I was thinking, Jake said. What if they're not actually better fighters than us? What if they just have better computers? Jake called Tony to the computer room. The engineer brought his tools and started looking at the technical data. Captain, I've been studying the energy patterns from their ships. Their adaptive shields use a lot of power, way more than normal shields. How much more? About 30% of their total ship power goes to running the adaptive systems. That's a huge amount of energy. Dr. Park joined them later that day. She had been studying medical reports from the few survivors of void-born attacks. I found something interesting. The aliens who fought them longest were the ones who kept changing their tactics. The Morgani held out for 6 months because they kept switching between different fighting styles. Jake felt excited for the first time in days. So if we can change our tactics faster than they can adapt, we might have a chance, Kate finished. Jake stood up and walked around the small room. His mind was working fast now. We need to test this theory. We need to find a small group of void-born ships and see if we can beat them. Sir, Kate said carefully, Fleet Command ordered us not to engage the enemy. Fleet Command is wrong, Jake said. They're trying to fight the void-born the same way everyone else did. Big fleets, heavy weapons, standard tactics. It doesn't work. Ben's voice came over the ship's communication system. Captain, we're receiving a priority message from Admiral Hayes. Jake went to the bridge and read the message. Admiral Hayes was not happy. She had heard that Jake was collecting combat data instead of helping with evacuations. The message was clear. Follow orders or face court-martial. Sir, Kate said quietly, maybe we should listen to the Admiral. Jake looked at his crew. They were all good people, and they didn't deserve to get in trouble because of his ideas. Anyone who wants to transfer to another ship can do so at the next station. I won't hold it against you. Nobody moved. Tony spoke first. Captain, we've been with you for 3 years. If you think you can beat these things, we'll follow you. The Voidborn destroyed my sister's colony, Ben said. I want to make them pay. Dr. Park nodded. Someone has to try something different. Might as well be us. Jake felt proud of his crew, but also worried. If he was wrong, he would get them all killed. All right then. We're going to need to modify our weapons and tactics. Tony, can you rig our systems to switch between different configurations quickly? How quickly? Every 3 minutes we need to stay ahead of their adaptation cycle. Tony thought about it. I can do it, but it'll be risky. Switching weapon systems that fast could overload our power grid. Do it anyway. Jake spent the next few days planning their attack strategy. Instead of the standard long-range engagement that every other military used, he wanted to get close to the void-born ships. Very close. He figured their adaptive systems were designed to handle conventional space combat, not close-range fighting. This is crazy, Kate said as she looked at his battle plan. You want to ram them? Not ram exactly. Get close enough to use our maintenance tools as weapons. Tony, can you turn our cargo manipulator arms into weapons? I can mount plasma cutters on them. Turn them into giant swords, basically. Perfect. Dr. Park was worried about the plan. Jake, if we get that close to their ships, they'll be able to shoot us with everything they have. Only if their weapons work, Jake said. We'll be switching our shield frequencies every 2 minutes. By the time they adapt to one frequency, we'll already be using a different one. Jake knew his plan was dangerous. It went against everything he had learned in military school. But conventional tactics had failed against the Voidborn for 3 years. Maybe it was time to try something completely different. Sir, Ben said, I'm picking up distress signals from the Kepler system. The Voidborn are attacking the mining stations there. Jake looked at his crew. This was their chance to test their theories. How long to get there? 6 hours at maximum speed. Set course for Kepler, battle stations. As the Liberty jumped to hyperspace, Jake felt nervous and excited at the same time. They were about to try something that had never been done before. Either they would prove that the Voidborn could be beaten, or they would join the long list of ships that had been destroyed trying. Elder Crone came to the bridge before they arrived at Kepler. Captain Morrison, I heard about your plan. Please be careful. The Voidborn are more dangerous than you know. What do you mean? They learn from every battle. If you show them new tactics and fail to destroy them completely, they will adapt to your methods. The next human ships that fight them will face an enemy that knows how to counter your strategies. Jake understood. If they failed, they wouldn't just be risking their own lives. They would be making things harder for every human ship that came after them. Then we better not fail, Jake said. The USS Liberty dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system. Jake could see the mining stations in the distance, and they were still there. That was good news. Maybe they weren't too late this time. Report, Jake said as he sat in his captain's chair. I'm reading 12 Voidborn ships moving toward the main mining station, Kate said. They're still 2 hours away from attack range. How many people are on that station? Ben checked his communications. About 8,000, miners and their families. They're trying to evacuate, but their transport ships are too slow. Jake did the math in his head. The evacuation ships would need at least 4 hours to get everyone off the station. The Voidborn would be there in 2 hours. That left a gap of 2 hours where 8,000 people would be helpless. Tony, are our weapon modifications ready? As ready as they'll ever be, Captain. I've got the plasma cutters mounted on the manipulator arms. Our shield frequency rotator is working, and I've rigged the torpedo tubes to fire in rapid sequence. Good. Kate, what's our tactical situation? Kate looked at her screens. 12 Voidborn ships versus 1 human frigate. Normally I'd say we should run away very fast. But not today, Jake said. Today we try something new. Ben, open a channel to the mining station. Channel open, sir. Mining station, this is Captain Morrison of the USS Liberty. We're going to buy you some time. Get your people out of there as fast as you can. A woman's voice came back over the radio. Captain, there are 12 enemy ships out there. You can't fight them all. Watch me, Jake said. Ben, close the channel. All hands, this is the captain. We're about to engage the Voidborn using new tactics. Everyone needs to be ready for rapid maneuvers and weapon changes. This is going to be rough. Jake stood up and walked to the center of the bridge. His crew was looking at him, waiting for orders. He could see they were scared, but they trusted him. That made him feel proud and terrified at the same time. Kate, plot an intercept course, full speed directly at the center of their formation. Sir, that's suicide. They'll blast us apart before we get close. Not if we're changing our defenses faster than they can adapt. Tony, start the shield frequency. Rotation. Switch every 2 minutes. The Liberty turned and began racing toward the Voidborn fleet. Jake watched the enemy ships on the main screen. They were big and dark, with strange angles that hurt to look at. He had seen them in recordings, but seeing them in person was different. They looked like they were made of shadows and bad dreams. Enemy. Ships are changing course to intercept us, Kate reported. They're spreading out into attack formation. Let them. Ben, start broadcasting random signals on all frequencies. Confuse their sensors. Sir, they're firing. Jake saw bright flashes on the screen as the Voidborn weapons shot toward them. The Liberty shook as the shots hit their shields. But the shields held. The first adaptation phase was working. Shield frequency change in 30 seconds. Tony called. Out. Jake watched the clock. The Voidborn kept firing and their weapons were getting stronger. He could feel the ship shaking more with each hit. 20 seconds. 10 seconds. Frequency change now. The Liberty's shields flickered and changed. Suddenly the Voidborn weapons became much less effective. Jake smiled. His theory was working. 2 minutes until we reach close combat range, Kate said. Jake could see the Voidborn ships getting bigger on the screen. They were huge compared to the Liberty. Each one was at least 3 times the size of his ship. But size wouldn't matter. If his plan worked, Tony, extend the manipulator arms, activate the plasma cutters. Arms extended, cutters online. The Liberty flew between 2 Voidborn ships and Jake got his first close look at the enemy. Their hulls were smooth and black, with no visible weapons or engines. They looked more like living things than machines. Fire everything, Jake ordered. The Liberty's weapons opened fire at point-blank range. Torpedoes slammed into the nearest Voidborn ship. The plasma cutters sliced through its hull like hot knives through butter. The ship exploded in a ball of fire. "First kill," Kate shouted, but the other Voidborn ships were already adapting. Their return fire was much more accurate now. The Liberty shook hard as enemy weapons found their mark. "Shield frequency change," Tony called out. The Liberty's defenses shifted again, but Jake could see this wasn't going to be enough. The Voidborn were learning too fast. He needed to change tactics completely. Ramming speed. Target the command ship. "Sir, are you insane?" Kate asked. "Trust me. Tony, transfer all power to the forward shields. We're going to ram them." The Liberty accelerated toward the largest Voidborn ship. Jake could see its weapons turning to track them. Energy beams shot out, hitting the Liberty's forward shields. The ship shook and groaned, but it kept moving. "Hull breach on Deck 4. Dr. Park reported over the intercom. "Keep going," Jake ordered. The Liberty hit the Voidborn command ship at full speed. The impact threw everyone on the bridge to the floor. Jake heard metal screaming and felt the ship spinning out of control. But when he looked at the screen, the Voidborn command ship was breaking apart. 2 down, 10 to go, Kate said as she pulled herself back to her station. Jake looked around the bridge. His crew was bloody and shaken, but they were still fighting. The Liberty was badly damaged, but it was still flying. "Ben, are you getting anything from the other Voidborn ships?" "They're talking to each other, sir. I can't understand the language, but they're definitely communicating." They're confused, Jake realized. They've never seen anyone fight like this before. "Kate, target their communications array. If we can stop them from sharing information, they can't adapt as quickly." "I see it. It's that strange antenna on the third ship. Hit it with everything we've got." The Liberty spun around and fired all its remaining torpedoes at the Voidborn communications ship. The torpedoes hit their target, and the antenna exploded in sparks and fire. Suddenly, the other Voidborn ship seemed to slow down. Their weapons fire became less coordinated. They were still dangerous, but they weren't working together as well. "It's working," Kate said. "They're not sharing tactical data anymore." Jake felt hope rising in his chest. Maybe they could actually win this fight. "Tony, can you rig the cargo bay doors to work as weapons?" "What do you mean?" "Open and close them really fast. Use them to deflect their energy beams back at them." "That's completely crazy, Buren, but I can try." The Liberty flew past another Voidborn ship, opening and closing its cargo bay doors like a giant mirror. The enemy's energy beam bounced off the metal doors and hit another Voidborn ship. Both ships were damaged in the explosion. 4 down, 8 to go, Kate counted. Jake looked at the tactical display. The Liberty was heavily damaged and running low on power, but the Voidborn ships were confused and disorganized. They had never faced an enemy that fought like this before. "All stations prepare for Protocol 0, Part 2, Jake announced. "What's Part 2? Tony asked. Jake smiled. "We're going to teach them that humans don't give up." The Liberty turned toward the remaining Voidborn ships, ready for the final phase of the battle. Jake didn't know if they would survive, but he knew they had already done something nobody thought was possible. They had proven the Voidborn could be beaten. The USS Liberty limped back to Haven Colony 3 days after the battle at Kepler. Jake sat in his damaged captain's chair, looking at the repair reports. His ship was barely holding together, but they were alive. More importantly, they had won. The final count was 8 Voidborn ships destroyed. 4 escaped. It was the first major victory against the aliens in 3 years of war. Jake should have felt proud, but he was mostly just tired. "Captain, we're getting a lot of messages," Ben said, from his communications station. His left arm was in a sling from the battle, but he refused to leave his post. "What kind of messages?" "News reporters, fleet admirals, other ship captains. Everyone wants to know how we beat the Voidborn." Jake rubbed his eyes. He had not slept much since the battle. "Route all the military messages to my personal screen. Tell the reporters we'll talk to them later." Dr. Park came onto the bridge with her medical scanner. She had been checking on everyone regularly since the battle. "Jake, you need to rest. You've been awake for 60 hours. "I'm fine, Lisa. No, you're not. Your stress levels are dangerous. Go to your quarters and sleep for at least 6 hours." Jake wanted to argue, but he knew she was right. His body felt like it was made of lead, and his mind was moving too slowly. Kate, you have the bridge. Wake me if anything important happens. Jake went to his quarters and fell asleep still wearing his uniform. He dreamed about the battle, seeing the void-born ships exploding over and over again. When he woke up 8 hours later, he felt better, but still tired. Ben was waiting outside his door with a communication pad. Sir, you need to see this. Fleet Admiral Hayes wants to talk to you right away. She's pretty angry. Jake took the pad and read the message. Admiral Hayes was ordering him to report to Fleet Headquarters immediately for a disciplinary hearing. She was also demanding a full report on his unauthorized engagement with enemy forces. Sir, there's more, Ben said. Captain Williams from the USS Phoenix wants to talk to you. So does Captain Roberts from the Titan. They both want to know about your tactics. Jake sat down at his small desk and started reading through all the messages. Half of them were from angry admirals who wanted to court-martial him for disobeying orders. The other half were from ship captains who wanted to learn his fighting methods. Ben, set up a conference call with all the captains who want tactical information, and get me a secure line to Elder Crone. An hour later, Jake was talking to 12 different ship captains on a video call. They all looked excited and desperate. The war against the Voidborn was going badly, and they needed any advantage they could get. Captain Morrison, said Captain Williams, we heard you destroyed 8 Voidborn ships with just 1 frigate. How is that possible? Jake explained his tactics. He told them about the 4-minute adaptation cycle and how to stay ahead of it. He described the close-range fighting and the importance of using unconventional weapons. The other captains took notes and asked many questions. The key is to never do the same thing twice, Jake said. The moment you repeat a tactic, they'll be ready for it. You have to keep changing, keep surprising them. Captain Roberts looked worried. This sounds very dangerous. What if we fail? What if we get our crews killed trying these crazy ideas? Then, you'll die fighting instead of running, Jake said. Look, I know it's risky, but doing nothing is riskier. The Voidborn aren't going to stop. They'll keep destroying worlds until someone stops them. After the call ended, Jake talked to Elder Crone. The old Zelani was living in the refugee camp on Haven Colony's surface. He looked tired and sad, but his eyes were bright when he saw Jake. Captain Morrison, I heard about your victory. My people are calling it the miracle of Kepler. It wasn't a miracle, Crone. It was just good tactics and a lot of luck. Crone shook his head. You don't understand. For 3 years, every species in the galaxy has been running from the Voidborn. You're the first to make them run from you. Jake felt uncomfortable with the praise. We only destroyed 8 ships, there are thousands more out there. But now we know they can be killed, Crone said. That changes everything. Over the next few weeks, Jake received reports from other battles. Captain Williams tried Jake's tactics against a small Voidborn patrol. He destroyed 2 enemy ships before retreating. Captain Roberts attacked a Voidborn supply convoy and won completely. Other captains were having mixed results, but they were all learning. Dr. Park found Jake in his quarters one evening, studying tactical reports. Jake, I've been analyzing the data from our battle. I found something interesting. What is it? The Voidborn ships we captured technology from. They're not just warships, they're refugee ships too. I found living quarters, food storage, even nurseries for children. Jake looked up from his reports. Are you saying they're families? Some of them, yes. I think the Voidborn aren't just attacking us. They're running from something. This news bothered Jake more than he expected. He had been thinking of the Voidborn as monsters who destroyed worlds for fun. But if they were refugees, if they had families, then maybe there was more to their story. Lisa, can you translate any of their communications? I'm working on it with Ben. We've identified some basic patterns, but their language is very complex. Jake made a decision. I want to try to communicate with them. Maybe we can find out why they're doing this. Jake, that's dangerous. What if they see it as a trap? What if they don't? What if they want to talk too? 2 days later, Jake got the call he had been expecting. Fleet Admiral Hayes wanted to see him at headquarters. Jake knew he was probably going to be court-martialed, But he didn't care anymore. His tactics were working and other captains were using them successfully. Kate, you're in command while I'm gone. Keep working on the communication project with Lisa and Ben. Sir, what if they arrest you? Jake smiled. Then you'll have to carry on without me. The important thing is that we've proven the Voidborn can be beaten. Don't let anyone forget that. The transport ship arrived to take Jake to fleet headquarters. As he left the Liberty, he looked back at his damaged ship. It wasn't much to look at, but it had changed the course of the war. Jake hoped it would be enough. As the transport flew toward the inner colonies, Jake thought about what Dr. Park had discovered. If the Voidborn were refugees, then maybe the war didn't have to end with one side destroying the other. Maybe there was another way. But first he had to survive his meeting with Admiral Hayes. Jake had a feeling that conversation was going to be just as dangerous as fighting the Voidborn. Admiral Hayes looked angry when Jake walked into her office at fleet headquarters. She was a tall woman with gray hair and cold eyes. Behind her desk hung pictures of famous space battles, all won using traditional military tactics. Captain Morrison, sit down, she said without looking up from her paperwork. Jake sat in the uncomfortable metal chair across from her desk. He had expected this meeting to be difficult, but Hayes seemed even more upset than he thought she would be. Do you know what you've done? Hayes asked. I saved 8,000 people and proved the Voidborn can be beaten. Hayes finally looked at him. You disobeyed direct orders. You engaged a superior enemy force without authorization. You risked your ship and crew for a glory mission. With respect, Admiral, it wasn't about glory. It was about doing the right thing. Hayes stood up and walked to the window. Outside, Jake could see dozens of military ships preparing for battle. Captain, I've been fighting wars for 30 years. I know what works and what doesn't. Your little stunt at Kepler was lucky, nothing more. Then why are other captains winning battles using my tactics? Hayes turned back to face him. Because they're getting overconfident. Captain Roberts lost his ship yesterday trying to copy your methods. 40 good people died because they thought they could fight like you. Jake felt sick. He hadn't heard about Roberts. What happened? He tried to ram a Voidborn dreadnought. The ship was 3 times bigger than yours at Kepler. It didn't work. Hayes sat back down. This is why we have orders, Morrison. This is why we don't let captains make up their own tactics. Jake understood Hayes was scared. The traditional military was used to following rules and procedures. His success threatened everything they believed in. Admiral, the old tactics aren't working. In 3 years, we haven't won a single major battle against the Voidborn. And in 3 weeks, you've won exactly 1 battle. That doesn't make you the savior of humanity. Before Jake could respond, an aide came into the office. Admiral, we're getting reports of a massive Voidborn fleet moving toward Earth. Over 200 ships. Hayes' face went pale. How long until they arrive? 72 hours, ma'am. Jake stood up. Admiral, let me take my ship back. Let me try to stop them. Absolutely not. You're grounded pending court-martial. Hayes turned to the aide. Alert all fleet commanders. We're implementing Plan Omega. Jake knew what Plan Omega meant. Complete evacuation of Earth. They were giving up the human homeworld without a fight. You can't just abandon Earth, Jake said. I'm not abandoning it. I'm saving as many lives as possible. Hayes looked tired and old. Captain, you're dismissed. Security will escort you to quarters. Jake was taken to a small room in the base's detention center. He sat on the narrow bed and thought about the Voidborn fleet heading toward Earth. 200 ships was more than had ever attacked one world before. Even with his tactics, he wasn't sure any human force could stop them. A guard brought him dinner and news updates. The evacuation of Earth was proceeding slowly. There were too many people and not enough ships. Maybe half the population would escape in time. That night, Jake heard explosions outside his window. He looked out and saw Voidborn ships attacking the orbital defense stations around the base planet. The battle was starting earlier than expected. The door to his room opened, and Kate walked in with 2 other people Jake didn't recognize. Sir, we're getting you out of here. Kate, what are you doing? How did you get here? Tony rigged a transport ship to look like a supply vessel. These are Captains Chen and Martinez. They want to help. Captain Chen was a young woman with serious eyes. Captain Morrison, we've been using your tactics for weeks. We've won 12 battles between us. We want to try them against the main Voidborn fleet. Captain Martinez nodded. My ship is fast. Chen's ship has heavy weapons. Your ship has the experience. Together, we might be able to make a difference. Jake looked at Kate. Is the Liberty ready to fight? Tony's been working around the clock. She's not pretty, but she'll fly. They escaped the base during the confusion of the orbital battle. Jake's small fleet consisted of 3 ships against 200. It should have been hopeless, but Jake had learned not to think about odds anymore. As they flew toward Earth, Jake studied intelligence reports about the Voidborn fleet. This wasn't just an attack force. There were civilian ships mixed in with the warships, families just like Dr. Park had discovered. Ben, are you still working on translating their language? Yes, sir. I think I can send a basic message. Jake made a decision that surprised even himself. I want to try talking to them before we fight. Sir, they've never responded to communication attempts, Captain Chen said over the radio. They've never been offered anything except surrender demands. I want to try something different. Jake had Ben prepare a message in the Voidborn language. It wasn't a demand or a threat. It was an offer. Jake wanted to share human technology in exchange for peace. The 3 human ships approached the massive Voidborn fleet. Jake could see Earth in the distance, blue and beautiful and defenseless. This might be the last time he ever saw his home world. Send the message, Jake ordered. Ben transmitted the communication toward the largest Voidborn ship. The message explained that humans had technology that could help both species. It offered to share information about artificial intelligence defenses in exchange for stopping the attack. For 10 minutes, nothing happened. Then the Voidborn fleet stopped moving. Sir, we're getting a response, Ben said excitedly. It's in our language. The voice that came over the speakers was strange and mechanical, but the words were clear. Human ships, why do you offer aid to your enemies? Jake took a deep breath. Because we're not enemies. We're both just trying to survive. You do not understand. We must clear this space of all life. The plague follows us. It consumes everything. What plague? The machine plague from the galaxy center. It destroys all biological life. We flee, but it follows. We must create dead space to stop it. Jake finally understood. The Voidborn weren't evil conquerors. They were terrified refugees trying to create a barrier of dead worlds to stop something even worse. We have technology that can fight artificial intelligence. We can help you stop the plague without destroying more worlds. There was a long silence. Then the Voidborn voice spoke again. Show us. Jake ordered his ships to transmit technical specifications for quantum firewalls and AI countermeasures. It was humanity's most advanced technology, but Jake knew it was the right thing to do. After reviewing the data, the Voidborn made an offer that changed everything. They would share their advanced ship technology in exchange for human AI defenses. Together, they would build a combined fleet to fight the machine plague. 6 months later, Jake stood on the bridge of the Liberty, watching human and Voidborn ships flying together toward the galaxy center. The ship had been rebuilt with new technology from both species. It was faster, stronger, and more advanced than anything humans had ever built. Ready for jump to hyperspace, Kate reported. Jake looked at the mixed fleet around them. Humans and Voidborn working together, heading toward a battle that would determine the fate of all biological life in the galaxy. Take us out, Jake said. The combined fleet jumped into hyperspace, leaving Earth safe behind them. Jake had learned that sometimes the best way to win a war was to turn your enemies into allies. Now they would find out if that lesson was enough to save the galaxy.